Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we are finally continuing our 2028 series of whichever Democratic candidate will go against J.D. Vance. Last time I did this, I think we did Raphael Warnock or Gretchen Whitmer, but that was a long time ago, and now we are finally continuing the series. Last night, during the live stream, on the 24th, somebody recommended we do Tim Kaine, and I gotta take your suggestions, so we'll do Kaine first, and then we will take suggestions in the comments, and if there aren't any, then I'll just choose some by myself. Anyways, remember to subscribe and like the video, and let's get into it. So, Tim Kaine here. I don't label it, but Tim Kaine versus J.D. Vance, because we are quite confident that J.D. Vance would be the Republican nominee, and I don't see any big opposition besides maybe Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis. So, just letting you know, J.D. Vance is always going to be the GOP nominee in all of these videos. So, first of all, let's get the solid states actually filled in. These are going to be California, Washington, Hawaii, the District of Columbia, Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware, Connecticut, and Vermont. Alright, let's get the solid Republican states now. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Nebraska's 3rd Congressional District, South Dakota, North Dakota, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, as well as Oklahoma. So those are all of the solid states filled in. Democrats sit at 111 electoral votes to Republicans 90. So Tim Kaine, he's from the state of Virginia, so he's not exactly the more popular senator from here. Mark Warner, I'd say he's more popular. Kaine, he kind of just fell off after his 2016 vice presidential bid. He hasn't been really involved in much, so he's not exactly a big name. I don't think he would be the nominee of the Democrats. I don't think he would run, but I'm just taking a suggestion, okay? Republicans, they take Montana, they put that into their safe category. Same with Missouri. I'm not saying that Kaine would do necessarily well here, just in a generic kind of matchup. These states wouldn't make it over 20%. I'm also going to put, I think that's good. So basically, for the same thing on the Democrat side, we're going to put Illinois into there. We're going to put Oregon into the safe Democratic column. We're going, I forgot to put Maine's first into the solid column, and we're going to put Colorado into the safe column as well. So now with those states filled out, Democrats sit at 149 to Republicans 104. Okay. Democrats, they're going to do well in Virginia because, Kaine, he's from Virginia. And I'm going to say this again, he's not the most popular, but he should still be able to lock it down. And let's just say in this scenario, J.D. Vance chooses Josh Hawley as his running mate. And Tim Kaine, he chooses, let's just say Raphael Warnock as his running mate. Okay. So Democrats, they also get New York into the likely column. Look, New York, it's trending to the right. I don't think any candidate can stop that, but it will definitely be in the high likely margins, probably D plus, 12%. So I think that should be good for the likely states. I'm also going to add New Mexico in there. New Mexico, you can say it's trending right, you can also say it's trending left. Just in this kind of scenario, Trump's presidency, it's kind of generic of what we've seen from now. We're going to put New Mexico there as well. We're going to put Nebraska's first into the likely column. However, Nebraska's 1st congressional district, it was likely in 2024, and I think in this matchup between Kaine and Vance, it will stay that way. Alright, now let's go to the state of South Carolina. South Carolina, it was barely safe in 2024, I believe. South Carolina, it's not usually the reddest state, but it's not going to go blue. But in a Vance versus Kaine matchup, once again, South Carolina will be likely Republican because Trump barely won the state by safe margins, and, you know, if Trump's presidency continues to go this way, states and the national average will probably trend to the left by a couple points. This is really the same case in the state of Kansas. Trump barely won it by safe margins, and usually it's likely, so we're going to put Kansas into the likely column as well. Alright, I think those are all of the likely states. Democrats sit at 195 to Republicans 120. Actually, sorry, we're going to put in Florida. Florida, it's too MAGA to go blue. I don't see it going any less than likely Republican on any level, the presidency, Senate, governor. So, Florida, you kind of just have to put it into the likely Republican column. Alright, now let's move on to the lean Democratic states. So, these, it's getting kind of contentious, but we're also going to put Ohio into the likely Republican column before we move on. Sorry, I keep forgetting. J.D. Vance's home state, it's trending to the right, I'd say. And Ohio, Vance, I can't see him losing his home state. So we're going to put Ohio into the likely Republican column. I also forgot to put Nebraska at large into the safe Republican column, but we are going to do that. So Democrats sit at 195 to Republicans 169 before we enter the lean states. So the first lean state we're going to put is Maine's at large. Maine, it's shifting to the left, I'd say, but it's still kind of recovering from 2020 and 2024 because it was so close. I'd say Tim Kaine here, he doesn't do well in the Northeast, but he's able to keep states like Maine. And this is going to be the same case as Maine's neighbor, New Hampshire, kind of the same case. I'd say Kaine wins by 5% in Maine and 4% in New Hampshire. Is that how it looks? Yeah. Okay. We're also going to be putting the state of Minnesota in there. Minnesota was lean in 2024. I'd say it shifts to the left by 1%, and Kaine narrowly wins it by a lean margin. One of the more higher lean margins, but I don't see J.D. Vance winning any states besides Texas and maybe the generic 7th swing states in Iowa that we still haven't filled out. Democrats, they'll also win the state of New Jersey because, Republicans, they're saying Zohran Mamdani being mayor, it's going to hurt Democrats so much in New York. It's going to hurt Democrats so much in New Jersey. I just don't really see it. Like, I could see it impacting Long Island and New York by a bit, but it's not going to spread into New Jersey. I'll say that. It's not going to have a bigger impact than maybe 1%. So, New Jersey, it is shifting to the right. And I'd say Tim Kaine barely wins it by 2.5%. Now we're going to put the state of Iowa into the lean Republican column. Iowa, I'd say with states like Wisconsin and Minnesota, I feel like that little pack there, I'd say they're shifting to the left. Every single Rust Belt state, besides Iowa, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, I'd say every Rust Belt state besides those two are probably shifting to the left slowly, but they are. And I'm going to have to put Iowa into the lean Republican column because I don't see it going blue before 2032. J.D. Vance wins it by 3%. We're also going to be putting the state of Texas. This is really no surprise. 2024 really made the leftwards trend in Texas slow down by so much. And I'd see J.D. Vance winning it by 4 to 8%, but I'm going to be putting Texas as R plus 4.5-ish, and J.D. Vance does carry the state of Texas. We're also going to put the state of Alaska. I mean, these are all kind of red states, but in a very good blue way for Democrats, so they could definitely flip a couple of these, but no, it's just not going to happen. Alaska goes with J.D. Vance. Definitely more moderate than states like Texas, though, I will say that. We're also going to be putting Maine's 2nd congressional district. I know these are basically all states that Trump won by likely margins, but we're going to have to be putting them in lean because the presidency just isn't really living to a couple people's expectations. Trump's approval ratings in independents are extremely low, and independents, a lot of them are in Maine. So, Maine, 2nd, we're going to put them as R plus 1.5, barely for JD Vance. And now we are just left with, Nebraska's 2nd. Nebraska's 2nd, we're going to be putting in lean blue, okay? Nebraska's 2nd, it went, I believe, likely Democrat. Let me fact check that. Because I want to say something. In 2025, the Omaha mayoral's race, that mayoral race flipped blue. Okay, Omaha, it's part of the only blue congressional district in Nebraska, and that district is actually held by a Republican, Don Bacon. So we saw it flip blue, and that just kind of ensures that Republicans probably won't be able to hang on to this congressional district during the midterms, and there's no chance of them flipping it unless the mayor of Omaha is really bad. I don't really see that, but Nebraska's 2nd, it went to Kamala Harris by several points, and I can't see JD Vance winning it. Now let's move on to the state, this generic 7 swing states, 93 electoral votes that will decide the election. Democrats sit at 226, Republicans sit at 219. Tim Kaine versus JD Vance. Let's get into it. Arizona, this state somehow went likely a Republican in 2024. Donald Trump, we actually expected Arizona to be blue due to that abortion referendum being on the ballot, but that just was not the case. It was the reddest out of all of them. And remember, Biden won the state in 2020. And I just don't see Democrats flipping it back, but I will put it into the tilt Republican column. JD Vance, he really can't. I feel like JD Vance doesn't have the national kind of vibe that Trump had, and Vance will definitely not do as well in the swing states that are not in the Rust Belt, and he'll also do worse in states like Michigan and Wisconsin. The only state I think he could do pretty good in is Pennsylvania. We're also going to be putting the state of Nevada into the tilt Democratic column. So Nevada, it's always been, kind of the bluest swing state. It went to Hillary Clinton in 2016, went to Biden in 2020, but Trump won it by a lean margin. And I feel like, depending on the result of the governorship, I feel like Republican Governor Joe Lombardo will be able to win re-election, but I feel like Democrats at the same time will be able to win this state on the presidential level as well as the Senate seat in 2028, even if they nominate a candidate like Tim Kaine. So now let's also move on to the state. How about we choose North Carolina? We're going to put North Carolina into the tilt Republican category. North Carolina and Georgia, at the same time, they're both shifting incredibly to the left. We saw in 2024 the Atlanta suburbs in Georgia, they shifted to the left by so much. It's basically certain that Georgia will be lean Democrat and in 2028, and we'll also see something like that in North Carolina, and I expect North Carolina to be blue by 2030 at this rate. And now that just leaves us with the Rust Belt states. Democrats sit at 248, Republicans sit at 246. Okay, Democrats, they're going to win the state of Wisconsin. Look, I'm going to have it be by a lean margin. Wisconsin was the closest swing state in 2024. Donald Trump won it by less than a percentage point. The Democratic senator here, Tammy Baldwin, was reelected to her seat in 2024, and I see Wisconsin flipping blue on the presidential level in 2028. So, we always said that Michigan would be bluer than Wisconsin. In 2024, that was not the case. Michigan, I'm going to put it into lean Democrat. That gives Democrats 273 electoral votes, and that gives Tim Kaine a very, very narrow win against J.D. Vance. And, we're also going to put Pennsylvania into the tilt Republican column. So Republicans take the swing states of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Arizona. Democrats take Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. Tim Kaine and Raphael Warnock become the president and vice president of the United States. J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley concede the election. Ultimately, Kaine only wins by 8 electoral votes. So remember, if you have any other suggestions for which Democrats you would like to see in a scenario in 2028 against J.D. Vance, remember to comment down. And thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.